Australia, I was pretty heavily involved. On one side of my family, on my mother's side, they had over 10,000 merinos. No fat lambs, but fine wool merinos. But I did lamb as a minor at college, but I'm kind of in my role with union now. I've got to kind of dig my thoughts up from the distance to help guys out. So what I'm going to talk about today is just what annuals are and what you guys can use them for. And most of the photographs that I've got here and explanations and stuff is out of either Australia or New Zealand. There's a couple of feed samples of my own from my own place. We are a cow-calf operation, but I think feed is feed, and however we can use it to the best ability, that's it should all enroll all of us. So I'll continue on here with this, and if you've got any questions, just put them in the chat box, or we can hold them to the end. But if there's something you want to stop at a slide and ask more about, well, send that up. We can talk about it, or I can bounce back to the slide you want to discuss. So here we go. Oh, yeah, now what? It's not moving. Okay, so why grow annuals? This is a question I ask guys when I go to their place and say, why do you need to grow annuals? Is there something wrong with your perennial pasture stands? Do you want to improve them? Or is it something in a crop rotation? So this is what you've got to ask yourself, because I strongly believe that annuals will not replace a really good perennial pasture stand, both the same sort of forage quality, but we don't have the input of finances going into a really good perennial stand compared to a yearly of growing an annual. So this is something you've got to ask yourself. Am I growing it for a crop rotation? Am I growing it for fattening lambs on? And I don't want to take my ewes off a high valued piece of land that's they can super ovulate on. Like breeding, you can use it for breeding seasons if you've got a multi-species crop and have high ovulation if your perennials aren't up to that kind of quality. Resting your perennials if you want something early in the summer and you want to have that period where you want your perennials to get up and get a bit of a start on, that's fair enough. We'll grow some annuals. And you might have something like fall Triticale this year with some sweet clover, and you can go onto those annuals before you go into perennials. And then for grazing rotations, you can have a really ordinary perennial stand. And then when it comes to fattening or ovulating, we can put them on to an annual that's high feed value. And then also with the soil health aspect, we always kind of try and integrate livestock and soil health together. And that's the way good operators or good stockmen should thinking. They should be looking after the livestock underneath the soil and also livestock above the soil. So what should I grow? There's different horses for courses. We've got some areas in Alberta, you have trouble growing clovers and Italian ryegrasses and things like this. But some areas in Alberta, they do very well. So if you're in a drier area, you look at, say, something like Triticale and a forage rape. And then in a more wetter area, you look at a forage turnip, Italian ryegrasses, some clovers, all these kind of different things, which we're going to talk about all through. In this presentation, I'm going to explain what the species are and what they're good for and their feed values. So this is the sort of thing you assess, am I in many berries? Well, then, I'm really limited to forage rapes and cereals. But if I'm in the foothills where we're west of Crossfield, we can pretty much grow anything here. The clovers, the ryegrasses, the chicories, plantains, you name it. So not everything is suited for every location. And then you've also got to think, am I growing it for soil health? So we might use different things, different legumes. Okay, this is, so 15 years ago, I was over in New Zealand. We were heading home to Australia with our first child, and so I called into some friends' places, and we saw what they were doing down there with forage. This is forage turnip, and I wanted to really improve my winter swath grazing. So we run a total year-round grazing operation. We have cattle on feed, on grazing for 365 days. We don't supplement with anything except for good mineral. So we're going from high legume pastures to winter forage. So swath grazing, we were just using oats and triticale, and I just wasn't satisfied. And this picture here, when I took it down there, and I thought, man, we got to really look at bringing some brassicas. So I imported 9 bags of Winfred forage rape and mixed it in with my oats and triticale, and that was the beginning of the journey we've been on since. So this picture here shows, this is at David Beggs's, and he's, as you can see there, he's got ewes and lambs in there, and he's rotational grazing this, so he's not grazing it all the way to the ground. He's moving through on quick daily shifts, and then coming back about 2 or 3 weeks later, and keeps rotating around. So this is where I started thinking we need to do something better up here in the livestock industry. And kind of about 10 years after this photograph, Union Forage started, because we those 9 bags turned into a pallet, turned into a couple of pallets. Last year, it was 31 seed cans of seed. So this is really starting to get, with the soil health thing, it's really getting people to start to think about how they can do things more efficiently. So I'm going to talk about brassicas. So I'm going to break it down into headings. So we'll go through these as we go along. This picture here is actually Goliath forage rape just by itself, but you can see the canola coming up here in the side, and it was used for grazing cattle multiple times. So what is a brassica? I hear people say it's a hybrid brassica. I'm growing hybrid brassica. Well, what is a hybrid brassica? There's no such thing. You've got your hybrid rapes, you've got your hybrid turnips, but when a guy says in my mix it's a hybrid brassica, well, that could be anything. It could be collards, and collards are a low quality feed. They're not designed for livestock. So the brassica family that we will all use will be your Swedes, which we don't grow up here. They're too finicky to grow. We've got our forage rapes, which is our Winfred and Goliath forage rapes. We've got our turnips, which is your green globes or your barcant or anything like that. And then you've got your daikon radish, your tillage radishes, which for soil health. We can grow kale up here. So the difference between a forage kale and a forage rape, the forage rape only needs about 80 to 90 days growing time, where a kale needs about 120 days. So we grow more kale in the interior of BC than we do out here on the prairies. And then, I've got plantain, should be down there with the forbs. So a lot of guys will think plantain and chicory are a brassica, but they're not. They're a forb, and that canola should be back up. I must have gone to sleep. So that's something that you should think about, that, okay, I want chicory or plantain, don't go looking in the brassica family. But you know, all the brassicas by all these plants over here that we use in our daily lives, your cauliflower and cabbage and Brussels sprouts over here, and broccoli. So the brassica is a Latin name for a family. So we've got the family of brassicas that we all know and use, and then we've got our family of brassicas that we use for livestock. So that was just to make things a little clear. If you're looking for something quick growing, don't go and get kales. Look at your forage rapes, your turnips, your forage turnips. And now I'm going to break them down into their varieties, into their species. So this is hunter forage turnip. It took 22 years to design this plant. It's a plant breeder down at Lincoln in South Island, New Zealand, Murray Stewart. He wanted to take the bulb out of the plant and put more foliage up top here, as you can see. You can see 2 feet in here. This has been grazed once already. And then this is the regrowth again. So he wanted more foliage. So he took the bulb out, still has a tap root down here, as you can see, But this high quality feed here, this hunter forage turnip, as you can see here, is 23% protein and depends on your soil fertility, can get up to 70 TDN energy. So that's something you guys should think about, that, you know, do I want super ovulation? Well, this is the kind of plant mixed with some cereal that will work really well. So this is a hybrid forage brassica, but its name is hunter forage turnip. This plant here, as you can see, can be grazed multiple times. We can graze it probably at least 3 times through the summer up here, and then leave it, let go again. This is also a plant that if you seed in August, it'll be up to your knees by the time end of October. Very, very cold tolerant. And seeding in May here with multiple grazing. Weather permitting, you can graze this in about 6 to 8 weeks. Under irrigation, you can do it even later. This plant does like moisture, so if you're anything under 8 inches of rain, this plant is not for you. And that's through the growing season, so we need it into the fall too. Fast recovery, as you can see here, 3 to 4 weeks, even sooner, like 3 weeks under irrigation, 4 weeks under dry land. But with these plants, you only graze it down to about this high here. Can you guys see my mouse going back and forth, Ashley? Yeah. Yep. Okay. So, yep. Yeah. So, you graze it down to about that height right there. If you take it down too low here, it's going to take too long to recover because we don't have solar panels there to build up to get the energy going back up in the plant. So it needs to mine from the soil down here and then get these leaf matter going up here. So over a total grazing season, we can look at about 6 ton dry matter. This makes really good silage. If you're going to mix it in with cereals, you can make silage out of it. But if you get multiple grazings of it, which is a pretty nice number to have, this is dry matter. So it's really good for multiple grazings and get 6 tons an acre. So this number's wrong too. This is supposed to be 0.5 pounds a day. A lamb should take in 4.5 pounds a day of dry matter, so you can control a brake fence, electric fence, to give them X amount per day. They don't need that much more than that. Otherwise, it's just pooping it out on the back end and it's wasting that feed. And then we're looking at 4 pounds a day, 0.4 pounds a day average gain. And that has been proven time and time again down in New Zealand. This is one of the most popular plants for fattening lambs on down there, your Suffolk and type lambs, crossbreds. And then it, like I said, needs moisture and a strong survival for this plant with the grazing. This is here at home. This is the green globe turnip. So it is a bulb turnip. Sheep absolutely love these. You can graze half of them, as you can see the line here. Half of them will be in the soil and the other half will be out of the soil, the bulb. When these are frozen, these bulbs go over 34% protein, and it's up in the 80 energy because it turns into pretty much sugar. And so cattle, what I use it for, the cattle go nuts over these in the wintertime. But these can be also multiple grazed. I've got those here. So if you have that much grazing, then they'll respond very, very quickly. But you can see the size of the bulbs. There's a lot of tonnage here. Just like here, it says 8 to 12 tonne of dry matter per acre. That's taking the foliage up top and the bulb down the bottom. These plants, you know, it says right there 12 to 14 weeks growing. So these are the kind of plants you sow in the spring today, and then you start grazing them late summer, and you can multiple graze these. It's really good at putting organic matter in the soil, and then once again needs about an average of 8 inches moisture. These plants will do really well in good conditions. Up here in the foothills, they go really well, and they do perform and can be multiple grazed. But even if you leave them for winter, those leaves will die off green. They won't turn brown, and the bulbs will go solid ice, solid flesh. But the cattle and sheep will eat through them. So yeah, that's a really good plant. And it's also about $1 cheaper than the hybrid, the Hunter. Okay, I thought I'd throw this picture in here. This is showing turnips. This is in a sheep feedlot in New Zealand, just outside Ashburton on the South Island. So this is a 200-acre pivot. There you can see the pivot in the background right there. There's the head. So this fella, what he's doing, he's growing the turnips and giving them 5 acres. There's 2,500 head of lambs on 5 acres for about a 3-day rotation. And all he has is his electric fences set up all over the farm. He just opens a gate and takes the fence down and lets them through. But they first go in, eat all the heads, and then he waits till these bulbs are half eaten. And then he moves the fence. But what he's trying to do here is build up the organic matter in the soil through the bulbs, but also through the urine and manure through the sheep back onto the soil as well. So what he's going to do, and we can't do that, well, we could put winter triticale in. He's got wheat crop, grazing wheat straight after. As soon as he gets halfway through this 200-acre paddock, he starts putting wheat. And so when the sheep have finished the rotation going around, by the time they get back here, they're on wheat. So they're grazing young wheat. So that's how this turnip can fit really well in a rotation. So if you got onto this and grazed it off, then you could put fall triticale in ready for next spring as well. But it's a pretty neat concept. I think we can do a lot with this up here in Canada. Okay, this is Goliath and Winfred forage rape. This has got huge potential up here, especially with the way the climate is getting warmer. So Winfred is about 24, 25 years old. Goliath is the son of Winfred. So it is a kale turnip cross. Goliath is about 9 years old. So what they've done is got Winfred to be more drought tolerant, more flea beetle tolerant. And so that's why the next generation is Goliath. So this is actual Goliath. I don't know if you can see that, but the root mass on there is phenomenal. So when that dies off, we're going to add a lot of organic matter in the soil. This has already been grazed, this crop. So it's on its second regrowth, and this regrowth is about 4.5, 5 weeks old. So normally, if that wasn't grazed, it'd be up to my hips, but you can see it's down to my knees. So this is a really sturdy stem. It's got a really high leaf ratio to the stem. So what that means is that we can graze the leaf 3 parts off the stem. As long as we leave some leaf, that's got enough surface area to get atmospheric energy back into the plants, back into the root system, and then it can still keep on growing. It is excellent summer grazing for regrowth, or this is what I use for winter swath grazing. So I've got 5 pounds of Goliath with some turnips and some sunflowers and so on and so on, mixed in all together. And that's seeded in another 2 weeks, and I lay it down September. But that will do me until April 15th, roughly. And very drought tolerant. So if you wanted just a simple little blend by itself or graze it by itself, it is very drought tolerant. Needs about a minimum of 5 inches of moisture. If you had this under irrigation, you'd be able to graze this multiple times, up to 3 or 4 times, just like the Hunter. So this is one of your backbones of the industry. It's going to be one of the backbones of the industry here in Canada. And the gain on sheep, I called a mate of mine down there, and he said he's had up to 0.5 pounds a day of gain on lambs down there. So really good, high value feed. This is a feed test from my swaths in 2019. Last year I got hailed out, so my crop got hailed down and it regrew again, but I didn't have the tonnage by the time the frost came, so I didn't bother too much about a feed test. But as you can see here on this one, we've got crude protein right here, 19, almost 20. So this is why I keep my calves on till January. And then you can pop down to the TDN, energy, 80. So this is what's able to get me to be able to keep my calves on longer and not drag the cows down. And so this is what I look for when I'm determining if I'm going to keep my calves on later or shorter in the season through the winter. This is another picture. This fellow is, again, the back of Ashburton. No irrigation. This is all dry land, and he's fattening lambs on this. This guy's a custom grazer for the guys up in the mountains up the back here, and they send their lambs down to the lowlands to be fattened. And so you can see all these paddocks here that have got lambs in them. This is, he shits these fences 3 or 4 times a day, and they've just been let in there. And I don't think, no, I didn't. The photo that goes in an hour later, it's down to like this on the side. And he's also following this forage rape with winter wheat, summer wheat, sorry. Yeah. One thing about these brassicas in Australia and New Zealand, they're all winter growing crops. So they're planting them about now, getting ready for winter grazing, and we're doing the opposite. We're planting them in the summer and then going to use them through our summer. But our summers are like their winters, so it's a perfect match for what we're trying to do up here in rotations. This photograph, as it says here, was taken on the 15th. This is Goliath under, 15th of December, a couple of days before Christmas. Still green. This photo was taken at AIRG, where we have another Swath grazing paddock down there. So it was pretty good feed value. The cattle absolutely love them. They go to hunting them. That just freezes solids. It's like eating an isopol. Okay, so what I did here, I just wanted to show you guys the differences in the plants as they line up together. So I've titled this one From One Seed. So here's our cereals in the middle. So we've got Triticale, and we've got Oats. Then we've got our forage rapes, our forage turnips, and then our turnips. So we've got purple top turnip and green globe turnip right here. So you can see how it can outperform cereal crop. Okay, next one we're moving on to is Italian ryegrass. In Australia and New Zealand and England and Europe, we call it Italian ryegrass. Up here, we call it annual Italian ryegrass because Italian ryegrass can live up to 3 to 4 years. We have had it live that long here in Claire's home under irrigation and heavily fertilized. But if you were to plant this, I've planted this at home here, and I didn't have it survive the winter. So up here we call it an annual, so guys don't get too excited about it. But this is one of the cheapest feeds you can get for cheap. It's so cheap. It costs you about $30 an acre. No, about $24 an acre to $25 an acre. The others will cost you between $25 and $30 an acre. This stuff loves to be grazed. It can graze multiple times within weeks of each other, a couple of weeks under the right moisture conditions, and it just stools out. This plant hit, this photograph here is showing you this stuff has been pulled later in the season. But all these tillers and leaf comes from one seed. So that's just showing you, one seed, the volume it can make upstairs. It's can handle traffic. It's just an all-around great plant. Heavy stocking rates, heavy traffic on it, but it does need the moisture, as you can see here. And here we go down here. It's mostly an annual here in Canada. Probably in Ontario or somewhere like that, it could be treated as a perennial if it ever gets stays in the program. And then that 0 shouldn't be there. 5 weeks could be grazed 5 weeks after seeding, and 5 weeks, and then every couple of weeks after that. And really high feed quality for what it is. So we're looking in the mid-teens to low teens for protein, and then mid to low for the TDNs. Really good plant, really hardy, and full of sugar. This is it down here at Claire's home. This is at Granham Colony, and taken on the 25th of October. And we didn't stop grazing that. Those cattle had that down the week before Christmas. We had to move them. So this stuff was actually seeded under silage. So you can see the barley coming back again, but it's irrigated as well. But it was seeded underneath the barley silage. It was all taken off with one cut, and then the water turned back on again, and then away you go. So really, really good versatile plant. Okay, now we're going into the forbs. So the chicories and the plantains, these are something we've really got to adopt up here. In Australia and New Zealand, Europe and UK, these plants are all perennials. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to get them going more than 2 years. At home here, I've had chicory and plantain the first and second year. By the third year, it hasn't showed up in my perennial pasture stands. So this is, we do a pasture tour every summer down to New Zealand with anybody who wants to come along. So this one was in 2019. We all went down and we're looking at chicory. This is straight chicory for lambs, and phenomenal crop. Okay, we're going to talk the plantain first. So plantain is a tap-rooted plant. It's very, very drought tolerant. The root can get up to anywhere between 2 and 3 feet long, and can handle, you mix this with Italian ryegrass and some clovers. This guy's only got clovers in his, but if you mix this with Italian ryegrass, clovers and plantain and chicory, you'll have absolutely an amazing forage that can handle the traffic. It can quickly respond back within a couple of days to go, within a couple of weeks to go grazing again. We have had this under irrigation out at Gem, and we're doing more trials out there again this year. But as you can see, she's drought tolerant, brings a lot of minerals, calcium, zinc, selenium, mag, P, phos, and then copper out of the soil. Deworming. Any of these, the chicories and plantain, have the capability of deworming your sheep or cattle. So it's a antheo something or other. It's a great long word. But anyway, it's got the capacity to be deworming. Can be grazed after 45 days under the right conditions, and it can bolt. It can really go. Fast recovery I talked about. It's an upright plant. So the plantains that we have here that are perennials in Alberta, they're the native plantains. They go flat along the soil. You can see them in most farmyards if you look around. We need to crossbreed the plantains from down there to get the winter hardness of the plantains from here, and we'll have an unbeatable feed. But these are being bred to grow upright, not flat on the soil. And then really high feed quality, as you can see here, 28 and 75. So it's best under control feeding. Otherwise, the livestock will be just passing a lot of that feed value out the back end of it. And so 21-day grazing, we can look at 3,000 pounds per acre every 21 days in a grazing rotation, which is phenomenal feed. And chuck it in with some oats, and that'll give them some fibre as well. Okay, and here's its close cousin. Well, it's not a cousin really, but it's a partner. The chicory is another one that we've really got to explore up here. Has a really good drought tolerancy, and the root average goes down to 1.5 meters. So that makes it no-brainer. It's a really good drought tolerant plant. And if it's got the right conditions, it'll be the same grazing days as what the plantain is. And once again, high quality feed, really high digestibility. Both of these are. So, oh, there's that word right there, the dewormer. So it's the same as the plantain, can help reduce the worm burden in your sheep. Better growing with moisture, but it can be like if you're down around Walsh or any of the border countries where you get average rain or up on the bench, it can do quite well for us down there too. So Something that we should look at in the future, and as I say here, works well in a blend. So yeah. So here's chicory with Italian ryegrass. So we daily gains on this is anywhere between, these are in grams. So, you know, 350 grams a day on sheep. We're grazing lambs around 35 lambs, 35 grazing. Oh, how did I explain this? This is the carrying capacity per acre, and I should have had hectare through the day. So this should be actually acres. So 35 to 40 lambs per acre. So if you've got double that, give them 2 acres, and that's all they need a day. Okay. So if you've got 45 lambs and we can give them an acre a day, that's their daily requirements to get this kind of gain. Okay. And then produces more meat from that pasture with rotational grazing. So tight grazing. Okay. So now we're going into our annual legumes. This is some birdsfoot trefoil and Italian ryegrass and clovers, just east of Crossfield here. But we'll start with them. So this is a really touchy topic with a lot of people, especially in cover crop blends. They want legumes in there because they're going to fix nitrogen. That's a bit of a net misnomer. All these legumes right here, your alsykes, your berseem, sweet clover, crimson, white and red clovers, in their countries of origin, those are perennials. So the first year, they will not set nitrogen into the soil. It'll be the second year and third year if it lives. So we know alsike clover will live. It'll start fixing nitrogen. Sweet clovers are biannual. Sometimes white clovers will, and I'm finding them more and more surviving. So, but these others here, if you're looking for nitrogen fixing, go and use a pea. If you only got 1 year rotation, don't use these others, but they do make very, very high quality feed. So this is out at Gem again. So we've got red and white clover. We've got red clover, crimson clover. We've got chicory and plantain in this blend right here with no bloat issues. So really quick growing, just like the chicory and plantain. That's why it's good to be throwing those species in with the chicory and the plantain. Really high feed quality and the non-bloating. Because you've got diversity in this blend here, you don't have to worry about bloat because we only need about 40% of another species in a legume stand to cut the bloat problem down by 50%. Okay, these are 40-10 forage peas. If you're going to do a pea, look for 40-10s because they're a true forage pea. They haven't been grown to shrink. They've left them there. These peas can get 6 foot tall. Where they're harvest pea, they've bred them down so they're easier to harvest. These peas we get grown for us, and they go 2 miles an hour harvesting these 40-10 peas because they're so long and they're ropey, and they'll wrap around the reel. But the livestock absolutely love them, and really good root mass. As you can see, this plant is only 60 days old, and you can see the root mass that's already occurring, and really good quality feed. There's been some literature out there that say that livestock don't eat peas, but if they're in this kind of state, they'll eat them all day long. Okay, this is a picture that I wanted to show you. Okay, this here is crimson clover right here. It is 65 days old in the same paddock right next to the crimson clover. Here's our 40-10 forage peas, 65 days old. And if you're after nitrogen fixing, there's the plant you want to go with. So you're looking at 63 cents a pound here compared to $3.20 a pound here. So keep that in mind. It's all right to have diversity, and they do have really good forage up top. But if you want forage and nitrogen fixing, look at this guy here. It'll be the winner for you. And it's more drought tolerant too. The peas are way more drought tolerant than any of the legumes. except for alsike and sweet clover. Okay, so now I'm going to just talk about blends and how you can use these. So it doesn't matter, a blend or a cover crop doesn't have to be complicated. You can be a simple one like this with Italian ryegrass and chicory and some plantain, or you can really go with 7 or 8 species, but you got to justify the cost as well and what you're going to get out of it. So we'll just talk about some blends here. Okay, this is one we're going to call the rocket fuel blend. So it's chicory, plantain, annual Italian ryegrass. We had 80 acres of this growing last year. We had 80 fat heifers on here from end of May. This is out at Gem, end of May till mid-November. It's under irrigation. As I said, we're averaging 2.2 pounds a day on non-hormoned cattle. So this responded so well that we couldn't keep up to it, and he ended up bringing another 10 heifers in there to keep on top of it. So this is a really good one if you're in the foothills or up in the parklands. But if you are down south, then you're better off with irrigation if you're going to do something like this blend, but very high potential. This is the feed value for one of the tests. So this feed test is the end of the season. So this is getting towards the end of October. Still are, that's really good because a lot of oats and triticales and cereals start losing, as soon as it gets cold, they start dumping all its nutrients into the root system. Then you can look at the TDN here, 73%. So really, really good feed value with these, and then really high fat too. See the 4.14. So this is the feed value for your fat lambs or ovulating ewes. But your ewes don't need to stay on this kind of stuff all the season. They can, in the breeding season, you can bring the studs in and breed them and then kick them out, and they can, separate, and the ewes can come off this if you want and use it for your lambs. Okay, this is a multi-species one. What we've got in here is hairy vetch. Here we've got crimson clover, we've got turnips, we've got rapes. This is a real soil builder as well. This crop is up at Valley View. It's had a really good season up there. This is a couple of years ago, and it was multiple grazings. I think there's about 3 grazings out of this, and the 4th one took it right out because it's getting towards the end of October. But you can see here, you can have a simple little blend like before, or you can have this multi-species one. Like I said, these legumes right here, the crimson clover and the hairy vetches, they're not going to do much for you for nitrogen fixing, but it'd be very high quality feed. But with hairy vetch, you've got to be really careful with this. If you have any more than about 20 or 30% in your blend, and it's getting late in the season and you haven't been grazing it that hard, and it goes to flower and produces a pod, hairy vetch is very toxic to livestock. You can knock them down in about 3 days if they start eating the alkali seeds, and it'll kill them. So something to think about if you're making your own blend is just watch what's happening with your hairy vetch. This is this feed here. So you can see this is the feed test that came off here. Here we are, we'll look at the dry. That's what I always look at, and most people do. It's so you're looking at 20% protein, and then you go down to your PDN right here, 75. And this feed test, did really well. Actually, this is out at Leader. So this is out at Bert Anderson's. And it was an excellent crop that year. So, yeah. So that's not the same as the one up at Valley View, but it's a similar crop. Okay, this is my winter swath grazing. It's pretty simple. We've got the sunflowers in here, and we've got the peas, we've got the oats and triticale, and then the forage rapes. So this is something that we grow for our cattle, and sheep graze this. I don't know, you guys should really look at swath grazing for sheep. I've seen sheep ploughing over here at Vulcan under a foot of snow and still doing very, very well. So it's something you guys, if you incline that way, look at a swath grazing blend like this. The sheep will do really well on it through the winter. They don't have to be indoors all the time. Here's this feed test from my swaths. So, you know, here we go with the protein right here, 31. And then we drop down to TDN, is 78. So that was in 2019 again. So, yeah. So this is why I keep my calves on longer. It can really extend out your grazing and make you more cost efficient. What's this one? This is another swath. Okay. So this is just another test in here. Actually, this is in 2017. So same area, same paddock, but another swath in 2017. So still really high feed values all through there, high fat. So that's what we want. Okay, another little simple one. This is down at White Lake at Graeme. So this is just hunter forage. No, actually, this one's at Pinoca. This one's just hunter forage turnip Italian ryegrass, being grazed multiple times by actually dairy cows, actually. So really, really good feed. This farmer couldn't keep up. He was just turning dry females out and then heifers out of this, and he couldn't keep up. And so he ended up silaging some of it, and it went really well. So not a complicated one, but you've got to pick plants that grow at the same rate. So the Italian ryegrass and the hunter are perfect matches for this. Here's another one down at, this is at Graeme. So this was seeded. This was seeded the end of July, and the seeds emerged the 2nd of August. So it was about a week apart. This photograph was taken towards the end of October. So we've got August, September, and October. And this is the amount of tonnage. They took their silage off and then went in and reseeded this. So it's a crop that will really respond if you're in the cropping business too. And this crop here will really respond after you get your silage off early, or your peas or your winter wheat, and then throw something like an oat and a hunter in. You'll do really, really well for extending your grazing season with sheep or cattle. This is what we call a dryland blend. So what we've got here, we've got our forage rapes in here, right here. We've got sunflowers coming as well. This is Triticale, and we've got the peas. You can see the peas here. With a blend like this, we've got 20 pounds of peas. We've got 5 pounds of forage rape. We've got 10 pounds of sunflower, and we've got 30 pounds of Triticale. That's a pretty good blend for down south. It still needs rain. Nothing's a miracle. And if you can get the timely rain, you can get away with this crop with about 6-7 inches of rain, and it'll do pretty well for you. Just timely rain, really. And once it canopies up like this, then you need less and less rain because it's so humid under there. Everything that gets rain down gets caught under the mat. So, yep. So this is another dry land blend as well, similar. This photograph here was taken, as you can see, middle of November. This is here over at AIRG again. You know, that's frozen solid. You grab that and just crumples in your hand, but the cattle actually go nuts over this. It's really, really good quality feed. Here's another one of hunter and Italian ryegrass, December. So there's so much potential with this stuff. We don't have to look at just cereals all the time. If we can get extended grazing right through to December, I'm not too sure what it costs for a ewe to graze, but we kind of work on, we got $1.20 a day for our winter grazing for cow-calf pair. Well, the calf is 57 cents. So, you know, we're looking close to $2. But if we can get them out of the feed pens, out of the grazing, then you can do that. And then as soon as you bring them back in, we're looking at $3 a day for a cow, to maintain a cow in a dry pen. Okay, these are some things to keep in mind when you're looking into doing something with annuals. These are all high performance plants. So really, if you want the high performance, fertilize them. If you're going into virgin pasture land that has been overgrazed, it's probably low on nitrogen and phos. If you're going to do this, you've got to get a soil test to start with to know where you're going to start. Eventually, you can start limiting the amount of fertilizer if you're going in a rotation, because the livestock will start filling in the holes for you. So that's one thing. Before you start, get a fertilizer test, see where you're starting, and that's just to stop a go mark. So in 15 years' time, I know exactly where I'm going. I know I'm building up my organic matter. I know I'm cutting down to only $30 of fertilizer a year, not 120 like we started out. So yeah, and so this is very, very important. This keep the fertility up, the requirements of the plants. If you want to skimp out, they won't perform for you. And choose the right crops. We talked about that. You know, if you want to have later growing season, well, this is okay, well, I'll just use turnips and some later cereals and a later maturing oat or something. If you want early season, then look at your tights of your chicories and Italian ryegrasses if your moisture will handle it. And then graze the crop. Don't let the crop get too stalky. Doesn't matter what it is. If it starts getting stalky and goes into reproduction stage, you're losing all the nutrient in the leaf, and so you've just missed the whole potential of the plant. And then the stocking rate. Just manage the stock so they're not grazing it to the ground, and you don't want it that they're pushing all the nutrients out their back end either. So once you get to know by the manure and see how mushy it is or firm it is. But say, okay, I only need to give them X amount of acres per day, and then have the ability to just have them that they can't go into some drier feed. It could be a straw bale, it could be in a rough hay. Just have something to the side there they can chew for the rest of the day, because just because they finish it by lunchtime doesn't mean you need to go out there and move it on. And so you're given their daily requirements. So if they want to eat something, give them some old hay or some roughing of some sort. So these are if you get into this business, print this sheet off and then keep it on your office wall and learn about how to do the grazing. Okay, now we're going to talk about the disadvantages, because it's not all ponies and rainbows. We can have bloat issues, not so much with the brassicas, chicory and plantain, but in a blend with your clovers, then we can have a bloat issue can occur. It may happen with brassicas if they're getting too much. This is where your animal husbandry and your stockmanship comes in. And then you've got the weed control. Once you've got a multi-species plant with clovers and brassicas and ryegrasses, your weed control is out the door. So make sure you've got a good control program before you seed. And if you don't overgraze, then the brassicas or your feed will outperform the weeds anyway. If you've got forage rape and oats or triticale, you can use Lontrell to control thistle, red root pigweed and stinkweed. But if you've got any other species in there like sunflower or peas, well, then you won't be able to do that. None of these, except for the Italian ryegrasses and clovers like wet feet, the brassicas and the forbs, they will start depleting and won't be to their best performance. So don't go and seed brassicas of any type in wet soil. I've heard some people say seed brassicas in wet soil, they'll do really well. They absolutely hate wet feet. But then you go, if you do have that, use your Italian ryegrasses and clovers. Make sure you got a good mineral program. So we forage test our forages summer and winter, and we get the mineral made up for what that is. And we've saved a lot of money by not buying off-the-shelf mineral because they're just selling you a stock standard item. We buy a mineral from a company in Innisfail, and they make that mineral package up for exactly what I want, which normally works out cheaper than what I can buy it off the shelves at retail outlets. Okay, if the soil is high in nitrogen, watch out for nitrates, okay? Because brassicas are a big hog, Italian ryegrasses are, of nitrogen in the soil, and season. You can graze the same paddock all summer until we get to September, we get our first frost. And if we've got feedlot manure or manure on there, highly concentrated, we can lose cattle overnight. So just keep an eye on that. But all it takes is a couple little spikes of frost, and then we can go back in there and graze again. It's normally, the first day is about 10 days after the first frost, and then it starts depleting after that as you move along. Then you've got flea beetles. If you're in a canola growing area, watch out, because the flea beetles will adopt the brassicas like nothing else. They absolutely love them. And the canola guys spray the hell out of their canolas, so the flea beetles move across onto your forage. So keep an eye out for that, and you can spray Matador to control flea beetles, but it could take 2 sprayings to control them. And this is really critical. I see so many guys seed too deep. So even if you have a blend of peas and oats and triticale, and you've got some Goliath and some turnips, seed everything at 1/2-inch seeding depth. Unless you've got side banders or something like that, you can adjust the seeding depth. If you keep that, that simple philosophy 1/2-inch, then away you go. If you've got high sulfur in your soils, do not use brassica. Brassicas are a sulfur hog. They mine it, and if you smell sulfur in your water, in the stock waters, don't use brassicas, because you'll get polio and it'll swell the brain and they'll be dead in a couple of days. So it's something to keep an eye out for. So they're just a couple of the off the top of my head what I could think of for the disadvantages there too. So I can't read the heading on that. So grazing the crops. So use sensible common sense. Ask someone who's been doing it. Introduce the stock slowly, and once they get adapted to it, you won't be able to hold them back. Sheep will almost eat everything, and they'll adapt really quick. Sometimes calves take a little bit to get onto it, but when they get on it, you can't hold them back. So know your stocking rate, know your density, and pick what forages you need for what purpose and when you need it. Use the shorter growing rotations, and you'll get higher yield. Capitalize on everything Mother Nature gives us, the rain, the sun, all the nutrients from the atmosphere to make your forages to perform the best way they can. It's so much free atmospheric nitrogen out there. Don't chew it to the ground. Let some of that come in, and it'll start building root systems, and it'll recover a lot quicker. Okay, geez, that went quick. So there's my info. You can call me anytime before 10 o'clock, or you can email me 24 hours a day. And then the Union White Forage website has tons of information on there. So yeah, that's it.
Well, thank you very much, Graeme. I'm going to open it to the floor to see if there's any questions that come through the chat box. So we'll give it a couple of minutes to see if there's anything that comes through.
Bill should have a question.
I'll give it another minute here for if there's any questions from participants to please put them in the chat box.
They can call me anytime too, Ashley. Yeah, not a problem.
Ashley, can I take a question? It's Ali.
Yep, for sure, Ali. Go ahead.
Hi, Graeme. Thank you for your presentation.
No problems, Ali.
I don't have a direct question about forages, but your topic ties into the fact that there are different strategies to save on feed costs.
Yep.
One of it being giving the right feed to the animals and picking the right forages. Do you think if you were to compare this to other and I might be off topic, so feel free to dodge my question, but if you feel, if you were to make a comparison between different methods of saving feed costs, which is the highest cost of production,
Yep.
how would you rank the forage aspect side of things?
At the very top.
At the very top? Okay.
Yep. Yep.
Can you elaborate?
Are you comparing silages and green feed and hay?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's one way. The other thing is that there's always ways to select for feed efficient animals, but yet give them the same amount of feed. Changing breeds or adding breeds that are more tolerant is another way of.
I find the breeds up here, there's no consistency in the lamb business up here. I see a fair few sheep, like at home and in New Zealand, you pick a type and you stick with it. And here there's so many people with their different types that it's really hard. I'm a Border Leicester Suffolk guy. Like I'd have them every day of the week in high moisture areas. But in then low moisture areas, I'd go Merino and Border Leicester. So that's, you're right. You got to pick your battles. But as far as feed efficiency, as in the forages, if you were putting up hay or putting up silage or green feed, so you grow this crop until July, then you go and bale it all, then you put it in the stack yard, then you bring it back out to their pens in the winter, then this, it's kind of defeating the purpose. And if you can have something that, okay, I need the hay, let's say I'm up at Valley View, I need hay, but if I can graze all the way until the snow gets 2 feet tall, then, I've just been able to graze till late November, early December. And then I can start feeding my hard feed or my harvested feed. But you're right, like I've seen anything from Doddins to Dorper. I've seen Suffolks and Border Leicester, and everybody's kind of got their own thing that works for them. So if I was in the sheep business, I'd be having more of a Excel, Suffolk. There's not too many Border Leicesters up here. Border Leicesters are one of the toughest sheep around, but they've got a temperament like nothing else. I hated shearing sheep. I hated shearing. They were like fighting Brahman cattle. So yeah, you're right. Pick your battles, but you can't. Like the world has, proven this, and same in the cattle industry. Canada's just catching up to the top producing sheep countries in the world and livestock in general. Did that answer that or no?
Perfect. Yeah, that was a great answer. And apologies from Ashley. I just noticed that I was supposed to type in my question, not ask. Oh. So sorry for that.
Talking's great. I prefer talking. Talking's good with me.
And Graeme, I noticed that there are 2 questions in the chat box. The first was, are there any forages that do better on sandy soil?
Yeah, your chicory and plantains. Yeah, okay. So if you did chicory and plantain and oats or triticale, because sandy soil can dry out really quick. So, you've got a cheap $7 bushel cereal, and then, okay, well, I'll tell you the price. Chicory and plantain is expensive, but you don't need a lot of pounds per acre. So you're looking at chicory is $7 a pound, and plantain is $3.30 a pound, but you only need a couple of pounds of each. You don't need 5, 6, 7 pounds. But if you have a filler in there like oats or triticale, you can do really well on dry sandy soil because of the tap rooting system, and you can sacrifice your cereals.
Okay. And the question is, do you have any feed mixes for alkaline soils?
I hate alkaline soil. Yeah, turnips do well. They're about the best. Turnips will do well in alkali soil. It seems to be coming up more and more. Even the perennials, you're better off with a brome, softleaf tall fescue, intermediate wheatgrass, and then some of these salt tolerant alfalfas. I'm a fan of these salt-tolerant alfalfas, but I'm not a fan of AC Grazeland because it's just too much downy brome in it. And so if you're looking for a perennial, try and keep her away from the halo's good, the alfalfa, but the wheatgrass is they haven't been able to clean the downy brome out of it, and you don't want downy brome on your place.
Perfect.
Turnips would be the most tolerant, alkali, salt tolerant out of all of them, and we have grown it in some areas, and it depends on the density of the mineral deposits too. So yeah.
All right, so there's no other questions that have come through. So I would like to thank you, Graeme, and to all the participants who joined us this evening. This does conclude the webinar. I will be sending an email to everyone who registered for this evening's session that will include a link to where you can access the webinar recording.